Hey, it's MannyMan. Today I'm breaking down how a clean and flexible fire mode system works in Unreal Engine 5. The exact setup I use for single fire, burst fire, and auto fire. Let's jump right into it. I've created an enumeration to name all three fire modes: single, auto, and burst. In my weapon blueprint, I've declared two variables using this enumeration. Available fire modes is an array, so I can create weapons that have only one fire mode, like a pistol or something. The first entry will also determine in which fire mode the weapon starts. I'm doing this in the construction script where I just set the current fire mode to the first available one. In my character blueprint, I've set up player input events that allow the character to talk to the weapon. For example, when the player presses the left mouse button, the character simply tells the weapon that the player wants to start shooting. When the button is released, it tells the weapon the player wants to stop shooting. Let me quickly explain what these want to events are and why I'm using them. I want most decision making to stay inside the weapon blueprint, because the character should avoid making decisions about the weapon's internal state as much as possible, which does not mean that the player cannot inform the weapon about, for example, that it got unequipped, where the weapon can react on it by maybe canceling reloading or burst firing. Keeping decision making inside the weapon blueprint makes the system cleaner, more modular, and much easier to extend. So when the player wants to iterate the fire mode, the weapon will decide what to do. It will check if it even can change the fire mode. For example, it won't change the fire mode if the weapon is currently shooting, because I did not want any weird side effects. And it checks if there is even more than one fire mode for this weapon that it could switch to. If that is true, the weapon will just iterate the current fire mode, which looks like this. Because I am using an array of fire modes, I have to check if the weapon already has reached the end of that array. If it has, I will go back to the first index. If it hasn't, I will just get the next index and update the fire mode by reading it from the array. Get next fire mode index looks like this, where I just search for my current fire mode so I know in what position it is, and then I will add one to it. To check if I can even iterate forwards, I basically do the same where I get the next fire mode index and just validate it. So that was how I implemented fire mode switching. Let's have a look at the fire events. So when the player wants to shoot, the weapon simply sets wants to shoot to true and checks whether it even can. Does it still have ammo in the magazine? Is it already shooting or reloading? If the weapon can shoot, it decides which fire mode to use. On single fire, it just fires a shot, which decreases the magazine ammo, performs a line trace, plays the shooting sound, and if the ammo reaches 0, it automatically starts reloading. Here I've created a macro called RPM delay, where I use some simple math to calculate how long the weapon should wait according to its RPM value. After that delay, I set shooting back to false. This boolean ensures the player can't fire single fire weapons faster by spamming the mouse button. On autofire, the process is very similar, but it also checks whether the player still wants to keep shooting, meaning the left mouse button is still pressed. If so, I just call on wants to start shooting again to repeat the check. This way, if the player switches fire modes while holding the button, the weapon reacts correctly. Burst fire is a bit more complicated because I need to track how many shots were fired in the current burst. I also created another delay macro called burst delay, which is just a simple float set to 0.25. Right after each shot, I increase the shot count, run the RPM delay, and then check if the burst should continue. The burst may already be complete, in which case the weapon should pause, set shooting to false, and check if the player wants to keep firing. If the player starts reloading mid-burst, we simply set shooting to false. And if the magazine runs out of ammo, we also set shooting to false and automatically reload the weapon. And that's the complete fire mode system. Hope this breakdown helps you out. If you want more clean UE5 systems like this, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching. MannyMan.